Hello and welcome to this project management tool video. And today I'm going to be looking at the control framework and in particular how decision gates, phases and governance, different tools and techniques, how they come together to help us stay in control of our project. But what do we mean exactly by control? Well, we're looking here at trying to keep on time, being on scope, and on budget. And to help us with this, we've got a slightly modified, a different version of the triple constraint. Cheap, good, and fast. Representing time, scope, and cost. Well, if something is fast and cheap, it probably won't be good. And if something is good and fast, it won't be cheap. So we can see that we've always got this interplay of time, cost, and scope, and we need to find a way for us to be in control of this, because if we're not in control of it, then our project will be in control of us, and that's when we start getting overspend, underspend, scope creep, and this is what we're trying to avoid. We want to be on time, on scope, and on budget. And so this is a good moment just to pause and have a think. Go back to your PMD Pro 1 knowledge, and what exactly are our definitions of decision gates, governance, and phases? And this is a good moment to just pause the video, have a think about this, and then we can continue. Okay, so let's have a look at these. And decision gates. Well, we know that decision gates are a major control point. I think it's helpful to think about this in terms of it's a gate. We open it, we can close it. Do we go through? Do we keep going? Are we on time, on scope, on budget? Do we go on to the next part of the project, to the next phase? Do we stop? Do we need to do some remedial work? Do we need to make any changes? So decision gates, if we find a way to use them, that can be a very helpful control mechanism for the project. Okay, let's have a look at governance. Well, yeah, we know it's about defining authority and accountability, and in the guide you've already seen an interesting discussions around project boards and sponsors, and you need to decide which structure is best or most appropriate for your project reality. But what we are looking at is trying to get the right stakeholder voices, the right stakeholder participation in the strategic conversations about the project. So if decision gates are a control mechanism, then we can see that it's going to be helpful to try to involve our stakeholders in this mechanism in some way to make sure that the stakeholders are not only on the same page at the beginning of the project, but keep going and are on the same page all the way through the project. Whether we make changes or when we make changes to project, what you want to avoid is a stakeholder coming back to you and saying, well, I didn't know about that, I don't agree. We want our stakeholders to be on the same page, all the way through the project. So again, linking our decision gates and our governance could be a way to do that. And then finally, phases. Well, you may well have come up with the PMD Pro phases, which is completely understandable and is a great starting point. But we can also think about phases of a project in a slightly more detailed or a more granular way. So a phase can be a grouping of work on a project. Well, what does that mean? Well, you could focus it around some key deliverables. It could be a period of time, maybe 3 months, quarter, maybe 6 months, maybe in a very rapid project, for example, an emergency response, maybe a phase could be a week. You know your projects. You decide what they are, and it can be flexible. And as you can see on the screen, it might be, it's interesting to think of phases both as the PMD Pro phases and also as phases within implementation. So again, we can see that if we've broken the project up into smaller chunks, it allows us to have more detailed plans. I can't do really a work breakdown structure and a network diagram. I can't make comprehensive and detailed plans for a project which is maybe going over 3 or 4 years about a task level of detail of what we're going to be doing in 3 or 4 years' time. No idea. High level, sure, you can do that. but detailed and comprehensive about a 3 or 4 year project, I question whether that is practical, or it would be so unwieldy as to maybe be not terribly helpful. However, if I break my project down into phases of, for example, 2 or 3 months, I can do a very detailed work breakdown structure, a network diagram, etc., for that phase. So again, by breaking it down into smaller chunks, I can have more detailed plans, which is going to give me more detailed monitoring and more detailed control. So all of these phases, governance, and decision gates, they can all help. So can you then think of a way to link these together? And again, this is a great moment to pause the video, and if you're working by yourself or with others, see if you can work out or even draw a way that you could link these together for your project reality. And moving on, I'm going to show you one way, certainly not the only way to do this. And as always, you have to be responsible for making sure that whatever you decide to do is appropriate for your project. So if you need to take some of the things I'm showing you now and adapt them, go ahead and do it. When in doubt, change it, adapt it. The tools work for you. You do not work for the tools. Okay, so what we see here is that we've broken implementation down into 3 phases. And just deliberately, 2 of them are for 3 months and 1 of them is for 6 months. And that's just to reflect and to show you that the phases can be different. Maybe we want greater control over phase 1 or 2, and phase 3 maybe it's a bit more extended. There's maybe not so much activity, so we don't need as much control. But we've got detailed documentation, detailed plans for each one of these phases as we advance through the project. And we've got a decision gate at the end of each phase. And again, this is helpful because we already saw that a decision gate is a control mechanism. So we've got more detailed documents, and now we are in a position to look back at the last phase and say, are we on time, on scope, and on budget? And then we can also look forward and say, well, and do we have the plans and the documentation? Do we have a detailed work breakdown structure for the next phase? Yes, we do. Fine, great. We can open the gate. We can continue. So we've got this control mechanism here, but I think for it to be really helpful, we've got to link it with our governance structure. Now, this could be a sponsor, a project board, but who are the key stakeholder voices? And we want to involve these voices in these decisions. Here are some examples of the sorts of questions that might be asked in a decision gate process. And you can see these on the screen. We've already spoken about triple constraint, but are there any major issues that go outside the project tolerances? Are there any major risks? Do we have the plans for the next phase? And I think interestingly, and I think this is always a good question to be asking, how can the governance structure support the project manager? Everybody wants the project to be successful, and the bit that often gets forgotten about, which documents need to be updated. So if some changes have been agreed, we can update the project charter to reflect that. And because we've involved the governance structure in this process, everybody is on the same page. And so by bringing these together, we can see that there are potentially quite a few advantages to our control framework, to controlling our project. Well, what do you think those advantages could be? And again, let's pause the video, and whether you're by yourself or with others, have a think. You've seen one way to link decision gates, governance, and project phases. What are the advantages of this? And you may well have something like this. So I think that we've spoken a lot about the stakeholder engagement and making sure that all of our stakeholders are on the same page. We're supporting the project, and sometimes that does get forgotten about with governance, but we all want the project to be successful, so we've got a mechanism for doing that in a timely way, because if the governance is only engaged once a year, well, it's probably too late. We have a lot of clarity. Because we've got more detailed documents, we know where we are with the project, and that takes us on to control. And I also think that by breaking our work down into smaller chunks, by engaging the governance structure and having a look at if we are on time, on scope, on budget, or not, and then we are starting to take some remedial action, that's our control. And because it's in smaller pieces, it's a lot more manageable as well. There are certainly some more advantages, but these are some of the main ones that I wanted to highlight for you. And at that, I'd just like to thank you very much for viewing this video, and really recommend that you experiment, that you try some of these techniques out on your projects, and hopefully it will result in increased control in your projects. And increased control means that we are more likely to be on time, on scope, and on budget, and that we are in control of the project, and that the project is not in control of us. Thank you very much.